Hello class. All right, so this is part 2 of our memes and culture lecture that is leading us into the next module on media literacies. So this is going to start turning us away from some of the content and more into the infrastructure that the web exists on. So we're going to be going over a lot of topics on this one, and this lecture is more in the style of a lecture I used to do, in which we watch it in a playlist. And we do this for two reasons. One, I'm not a real big fan of Panopto when I'm trying to show effective content. And then two, copyright. So I have to show it to you in its original format. So this lecture is played in order from the playlist. So you just play down the clips in the order in which they're playing and you get the whole entire lecture. You're basically going to watch a bunch of videos that are inside of this lecture itself. So this lecture is a adaptation of a lecture or a talk that I'm usually invited to give everywhere, which is kind of nice. Since 2017, I present this specific talk in Salzburg at the Academy on Global and Media Change, or Global Change in Media. And I'm giving this talk again on Tuesday, actually, at Emerson in Boston. And I do this talk in Nevada, and I did it at Queens College just a few weeks ago. And that's because this specific angle is, I think, becoming more and more popular, which is kind of nice. The topic itself is the commodity of authenticity. And so I'm going to link to you the podcast I was on with Doug Rushkoff, episode 113 of Team Human, where I actually talk about this in more depth. It's up to you to listen to it. It's not really required reading or listening, but you can see where this is, where I talk about this. So today we're going to talk in two parts. First part is about kind of a reaction to your work that you've done on your midterm and on the reaction that you've done on the paper, which is about influence, YouTubers, TikTok, and what you've discovered about passion and influence and content and brands in general. And the second part is your introduction to the algorithm. And this is the first time we're going to be stepping into the fields of the algorithm, which is very complex. And this is only the beginning, this one, but we're going to spend the next couple of weeks talking about the algorithm and the effects of the neural net and the AI and the recommendation engine that is operable on many platforms. So to begin, let's talk about your assignments. So I think it was really great reading your reactions and then seeing your vlogs. You guys did a phenomenal job. I really liked some of the approaches that you guys had, so I'm just going to go over a few of them that I took from the papers. Is that I think your understanding of how the difference or the contrast in the film The American Meme between Brittany Furlan and Paris Hilton is very apt. I think you guys noticed that Paris Hilton is kind of the OG influencer in this space, and people like Brittany Furlan were OG in the Vine space, but because of the vacuum that's caused by the lack of Vine, she's lost her sense of self. She's lost her sense of identity, and that kept her going. And in one way, that's kind of really sad. The film is kind of gives you a sense that there's nothing really there for her, because as soon as other people started mimicking her, mimetically, like started taking her concepts, she really didn't have as much as like an influence on the way that the styles were working as. And so that was kind of sad. Whereas Paris, it being such an OG character from the early 2000s, kind of became not only a brand, but has branded so many different companies and approaches. So I did like that, and I'll just shout out Regina here for mentioning that. I want to also recognize that Michael referred to a lot of memes as cultural icons or meme lords, and I think that's interesting too, is that the term memetics or memes no longer just apply to just the image vernacular. It actually is reverting, and this is a nod to many of you who mentioned that the history of memes is very important. This is a nod to the late 1980s, early 1990s considerations of memes that Terence McKenna, Doug Rushkoff, and Tim Leary were talking about all the time, is that memes are actually the icon themselves. The people that are inspiring influence, the people that are inspiring culture are really the memes that we talk about, because what they do is they create a cultural earworm or a cultural design for us to follow. So by their influence, people become very dangerous. At one point, Timothy Leary was known as the most dangerous man in America because he was convincing people to drop out of school and do acid. And so he was literally considered that because his meme was so influential that people were taking his lead. And we could obviously translate that into almost anything that we talk about today. When we talk about everything from politics to influencers online, people buy into the thought processes that are behind these memes rather than the conceptual depth that is really in them, which is fairly interesting in and of itself. Maria mentioned something that was very interesting to me that we're going to be talking about for this is the material is, and I'm going to put this in quotes, she didn't, but the material is authentic and effortless. And I think that's one of the biggest talents that YouTubers, TikTokers, and everybody have, is that they make it look authentic. They make it look real. They make it look effortless. And as you've seen trying to make your vlogs, as some of you have struggled with them, this is not effortless. This is very difficult. For those who take NMD 310 video storytelling, they notice that it's very difficult to make. It's only 8 vlogs for the whole semester, but it's very difficult. This is a job. People do this as a career. And so they make it seem authentic, as we talked about with Tyler Oakley previously. And Christopher said something that I'm going to use as my pivot point. He said there's an illusion to this, the illusion of authenticity. And there's an illusion that is built into this. And I think this is where the systems become shifted. And this is where we're going to talk today. The idea that there's an illusion here is very apt, because the illusion of authenticity is the idea that we curate a reality around what we show. And what I mean is, when you have your Instagram account or your YouTube account, or you're a YouTuber or a TikToker, very often we are presenting to the world a version of reality that we want others to see. Therefore, when people look at our influence or look at our content, they're seeing the version of reality that we've created, not the version of reality that exists. And therefore, people who mimic that meme or take upon that idea of doing those things don't really realize that they are participating in an illusion. They're participating in an unreality that they keep mimicking over and over again. What this does more than anything else is it doesn't help the influencer. It helps the company, the platform. It helps people start to understand how much we could exploit these systems. What you're doing by mimicking other people's style or aesthetic or brand is you're basically donating your ideas to the platforms themselves. So take Instagram, for example. If you started like presenting yourself or curating your feed so it's the best things, don't forget that Instagram, part of Facebook, also keeps track of everything you do. So they know when you post something that's aesthetically pleasing or brand specific, while your audience gets a version of reality that you've presented to them, the company itself actually gets to see all the ways in which you got to that in the first place. They know what you're up to. They know what you're doing. And that's where the part of the algorithm comes in. But before that, I just want to present to you how we get involved with this. Why do we become so overwhelmed with the concepts of participation and desire into this new and interesting fields of YouTubing, influencers, meme lords, Insta famous? So one of the things that I focus on specifically is these ideas of calls to action. Why do we get involved? What is the overhead cost benefit of analysis? And this is going to lead us to a lot of the discussion on advertising, a lot of the discussion on branding, on sponsorships, and how do YouTubers actually make money. As I said, like on the very first day, a lot of you want to know how YouTubers make money. A lot of this is going to explain this. We're going to talk about this for the next several weeks. So one of the ideas is, let's say there's an idea of calling to action. How do we get involved? Well, first I want to show you Casey Neistat's video, Do What You Can. And it was a video that is very important to the rest of the discussion that we're going to have in this class. So first watch that and the next in the playlist.